Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am sitting in front of my movie corner. I have my Through Faith t-shirt on, my King of Kings movie right next to me, and judging by the frame around me, we are back, taking on Sara Martin and her video, How My Christian Faith Fell Apart, a case study in deconstruction. So Sara here is part of the deconstructionist movement, and in the last video, we kind of touched briefly on some of the things that what might make someone start to fall away from their faith. One of the things that she mentioned was that when she went to a supposedly conservative Christian liberal arts college, which is contradiction in terms, she claims that her professors, her theological and philosophy professors, told her to critically question why, they were given these answers and, about God and about this and about that and blah, blah, blah. And I said that this was a major red flag because when I went through my philosophy religious studies class, Sacred Books of the World, we actually did, go through this Bible, go through, and we asked some questions from the Old Testament, we asked some questions from the New Testament, we went through the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, and never once did the professor say, if you're a Christian, then you should really ask yourself, why did Jesus say this stuff? Why do your pastors tell you this? Why do, when you listen to, televangelists, why do they say things this way? She never said that, In fact, all she ever did was just kind of give us some basics. And when I say basics, I mean she gave us things to talk about, Some things that we, as Christians, could go, could kind of, think about, is it really that way in the text? And it's not like she was, coming at it from a gotcha standpoint of aha, see, that person said it that way. Haha, see, they're wrong. That's not how my philosophy religious studies professor approached it. In fact, she just approached it from a neutral standpoint of, let's just analyze what the text says. And that's all we did. So, I don't honestly know why her professors at a supposedly Christian college, conservative Christian college, would have her questioning her faith like that, because that doesn't seem very conservative Christian to me. Because most of the time, conservative Christians, we believe in what the Word says, And what I mean by that is that we mean that when it says something in there, that's what we look at. We take it at its face value. As I've been doing with the Christy Burke 5 Bible Passages video series, I've been just kind of, analyzing everything she's been saying, but I've been analyzing it from a conservative Christian standpoint. Basically saying, what does the text actually say? What does it say in context? What was the historical context of said passage? What is the context of it? I've even, kind of looked in my strongest concordance and kind of gone in and looked at some of the etymology of the words used in the passage to try to say, this is why we believe in this. This is why we think that this works. And so when someone like Christy Burke, or like Sara Martin here, tries to come back and say, well, that's not what the text says. Yes, it is. That's what the text says. Now, how you're reading in that text which is the exegesis versus eisegesis argument, okay? That's the whole point. So let's jump back in and let's see where this little journey leads us, okay? Because I know last time I took like 18 minutes to get into the video. So let's jump back in and let's see where she's going with this.
So college had a huge role in getting me to begin developing critical thinking skills. Stage 2 also happened while I was in college, and that was going to Cambodia. My junior year of college, I spent 3 weeks on a cross-cultural trip to Cambodia. I think traveling outside of your own country in general is a very eye-opening experience. For me, that was definitely the case. It's hard to even summarize everything that I learned in Cambodia, but I think the biggest thing that contributed to my deconstruction, my eventual deconstruction, was learning about Cambodia's genocide during the 1970s. I'm going to include some pictures from my trip. If you do not want to see any of them, you can skip forward to this timestamp, which I'll have on the screen. Some of the images are a bit disturbing. It was really crazy to tour the sites of former torture camp and see holes where mass graves were, where they put the bodies of victims, and visiting a memorial built for the victims that was just stacked high with thousands of skulls. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, it just really is something that has stuck with me to this day.
So I'm not sure why visiting the killing fields in Cambodia would make you question God. Because Pol Pot, the man who did all of that genocide, was an atheist, a virulent atheist. He killed millions of his own people under the guise of evolution, survival of the fittest. So, if anything, that should have actually strengthened your faith in God, that, like, you chose the right thing. Okay? So if learning about that made you question your faith, it makes me question whether or not you were true to the Bible. Because I guess I don't understand why she's suddenly questioning her faith by going and visiting the killing fields. I went to Pearl Harbor, okay, in Hawaii, and got to stand on the memorial that's like literally about 5 feet above the deck, from where the deck is in the water up to the memorial itself. You're literally only about 5 feet, okay, and you could feel the men still trapped in that shit, okay. You still feel them writhing around down there. Okay, their souls are still trapped in the Arizona. Okay, you feel them. That doesn't make me question my faith, because what the Japanese did was horrendous. Okay, I mean, I have a movie that I urge every person to watch, okay? It's called World War II in HD, okay? And what it is they took, there's 3 discs, okay, in World War II in HD. The 3 discs cover, like, pretty much the first, well, covers the whole war, from the beginning all the way to the end, okay, to the eventual surrender of the Japanese. They went on a 2-year worldwide search and found color film. Now, contrary to popular opinion, most people think when they watch when they watch World War II footage, and I'll just use this as a quick example, if you play the game Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1. All of the footage that they have in this particular film, in the film footage for this game, is in black and white, okay? Because most people think that it was before color footage. Color footage was too expensive, they just didn't do it. But there was a lot of color film footage that was actually shot for World War II, okay? It's a real thing. And what they did is they actually contacted archives the world over. I mean, they went to Japan, they went to China, they went to Germany, they went to Austria, they went to Italy, they went to North Africa, they went to the United States, they went to Great Britain, they went to France, they went everywhere, and they found all of this color footage. And they basically brought it back, cleaned it. Then they put it into a projector, projected it against a screen, and then took a high definition red camera, okay, and pointed it at the screen, and then took pictures, took high definition transfers of the footage being projected onto the screen, onto the thing, so that they could actually play it, not only just play it, but that they could actually show it off to the world and have it preserved for posterity. Because I mean, this is a thing that most people didn't know was actually there, okay? And I mean, they have color footage of some of the most amazing moments of the war, okay? But the one thing I think that was probably the most haunting, okay, was not only the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, but because I'd been there, but it was going to or seeing the guys on the islands, okay, the Marines that were, battling Japanese on the islands, and watching the people. You talk about haunting images, you talk about grotesqueries. The people committing suicide off the ends of the islands is so haunting. To watch them, because there's literally a guy there with a bullhorn, okay, or actually with a little speaker and a loudspeaker and a microphone, and he's like, "Don't jump," in Japanese. He's saying basically, "Don't jump. You'll be given food, you'll be given shelter, you'll be given, things." But these people have been so indoctrinated by the Japanese for years that they believed everything the Japanese told them. The Japanese told them, if you turn yourselves over to the enemy, they're going to rape you, they're going to kill you, they're going to do all these different things to you, they're going to desecrate your corpse, they're going to do all this stuff. And the people believed it with such fanaticism that they either, some of the officers would kill themselves with their own swords, but when the people didn't have the ability to kill themselves that way, they ran off cliffs. They jumped to their death. That doesn't make me question my faith. That makes me question the methods of other people. What would drive a person so crazy that they would choose suicide over life because they believed something someone else told them? I believe in this book, and I believe it so strongly that if someone came to my house today and put a gun to my head and said, "Yo, man, you have to, stop believing in that, or you have to commit suicide, or you have to do something, you have to do this, you have to do that, or I'm going to pull this trigger right now," I'd say, pull the trigger. I'm not going to give up my faith, okay? Because the minute that we do, okay, the minute that we give up our faith as Christians, okay, is the minute that this happens. Whoever acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before men, I will disown him before my Father in heaven. And again, I've read that many times on this channel. That doesn't make you stop and go, "Whoa, do I want Jesus to deny me before the Father in heaven?" You have a problem. you should re-examine your faith. Because this is something that is worth having. And this is something that most people today don't go around putting a gun to your head and saying, believe this or die. We don't do that. We're not like Islam or dictators in a country somewhere, okay? Where we just randomly round up people and shoot them for no reason at all, okay? Or because they don't want to believe in our faith. We just tell you the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that Jesus is a real person, and if you don't believe in him, you're going to go to hell for your sins. That's the punishment, and I'm sorry that a lot of people think that that's bad, but the problem comes in when people like this come out and go, oh, I went to Cambodia and I saw the killing fields and, oh, it made me question my faith. Why? I still haven't heard a reason why it made her question her faith. She just said it made her question her faith. It was part of her deconstructionist journey. Hell, I went to New Zealand for 2 months. Okay? And I tramped around the countryside and I went to different places and I saw different people. I met Michael Biehn, the actor. Didn't make me want to quit my faith. Didn't make me lose faith in humanity. In fact, if anything, it restored my faith in humanity. She should see what that country has become under proper leadership with a flourishing, leader. I mean, it's not. I don't know necessarily that they're all Christians, but when you don't have a dictator that believes in evolution, okay, and that believes that everyone inferior to him should die, where are you at in your walk with Christ if that made you question? Did somebody tell you that Pol Pot was a Christian? Because if they did, they were lying. And you should re-examine your own heart if that's the case. Because it's just like when people tell me that, Hitler was a Christian. Hitler wasn't a Christian. Hitler may have grown up in the Roman Catholic Church, but he lost his faith during World War I, and when he was put in jail, okay, between World War I and World War II, he wrote a book condemning the Jews and railing at how the Jews caused them to lose World War I. And then he got out, got elected, and started yelling and screaming about how everybody in the world had to die. And to make the Christians in his country believe that he was some pious leader, he would take pictures of himself coming out of church. Like, they literally set these up. It's propaganda, okay? He would walk out of a church with like a candle right behind him that made it look like he had a halo and all this other bullshit. Okay? I mean, yes, he was digging for treasures in the desert, He was trying to find different, religious artifacts. Why? Because then he could stand up and say, look at me. I have the Holy Grail. I have the Ark of the Covenant. I have the Spear of Destiny. I have this. I have that. See how great and wonderful a leader I am? Yeah, well, you're executing God's chosen people. Are you that much of a moron that you can't figure it out? People seem to think the Crusades were, the Christians went down into the Holy Land. Yeah. To free it from the Ottoman Empire. Are you that stupid? Because the Ottoman Empire was killing the Jews. And the Christians went down there to free the Jews. Are you stupid? And if you are going, I can't believe Christians would do that, then yes, you are part of the problem. So I still don't understand this. That should not have made her question her faith. If anything, it should have strengthened her faith.
And I remember during that trip seeing these things just asking, like, where was God in this? How does this line up with what I believe about God and how...
Well, if it doesn't line up with what you believe about God, then obviously you weren't reading the Bible on this trip. And obviously you hadn't read the Bible up to that point. Because there's a little known thing called free will. Okay? That a lot of Christians and atheists miss. Okay? Where was God in the killing fields? Where were Christians when all of this was going on? Why wasn't it being condemned? Why wasn't anyone stepping in and removing, forgive me, the asshole who was doing this? I mean, it was before my time. It was before her time. Okay? Probably before a lot of your time. But you got to ask yourself, you know, where was the world when Stalin executed 20 million of his own people, including Jews and Christians? Did you ever ask yourself that question? Where are Christians today when in China there are millions of people being executed every single year because they're Christian? Where's God in all that? He's still right there. Because we're humans. We have free will. We live in a fallen friggin' world. What was, outside of original sin, what was the first sin committed in the Bible after the fall? Anyone remember? Can anyone tell me? Anyone? Bueller? Do I need to get out the Bible and read it? I think I do. Because maybe she needs a lesson just as much as you do. Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord I have brought forth a man." Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time Cain brought some fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, but Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? If you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were there in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Oh, what was the first sin again? After the fall? Oops. Murder. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse, and are driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. So what was the first sin again? On this earth? Murder. Where was God during that? He told Cain what would happen if he allowed that criticism to fester in his heart. So, where was God in all that? He was right there. But where were others to take people like Pol Pot out? This is what happens when you disarm a population, when you treat people like dirt on the floor, and you think you're better than others. Okay? You become a dictator and you start mass genocide. It has happened the world over. Okay? It happens all the frickin' time. And if she thinks that losing her faith, okay, is the answer, she's deluding herself. Because when it happens here, she's going to be just as delusional as all the rest of them. Because she's going to believe in the lies of Satan and not in the truth of God. That is absolutely stupid. It's so backwards. It boggles the mind how people can sit there and go, oh, where was God in all of this? He was right there. Do you think God enjoys it when we kill each other? When we sin against each other? When we do things to each other? Hell no. But it's up to us to change it. It's not up to God. God's already done it. Don't you get it? That's what the Bible is about. In the Old Testament, He gave us the law. Okay? And He said, look, I'm going to give you this law. Abide by this law and you'll be fine. Did Israel abide by the law? No! And what happened? The cycle repeated itself over and over and over and over again. Then Jesus came. Died for everyone's sins. Why did He die for everyone's sins? So that we could have eternal life. And why did He come? Not to condemn the world, but to save the world through Him. Because we're already condemned under the law. Because the law just exposes the sin. Doesn't do anything to stop the sin. It just exposes the sin. We're all dead under the law. Jesus came to fulfill the law and bring salvation. Got it yet? You have to believe in Jesus. And you have to believe that just because there are bad things and evil that happens in the world, it's not God's fault. It's ours, because we're the capricious humans that do stupid shit. Got it yet?
He works in each individual life and has purpose for each individual life. So Cambodia was really an eye-opening experience that got me wondering about what Christianity looks like in other parts of the world that are very different from America, from the American evangelical Christianity that I knew. The next stage was my first job that I got after graduating college. So the first job I got after I graduated was working as a mental health tech at a local psychiatric hospital. And for a lot of reasons, I was convinced that this was the job Jesus wanted me to be in. Felt like He confirmed it, He'd opened doors, He'd made a way for me to get this job, and it seemed like a perfect fit given my degree in psychology. However, when I went in for my first day of training, every fiber of my being felt like this is not a good fit for me. This is not where I should be working.
Then change your job. That might have been the Holy Spirit telling you, maybe this particular place wasn't where I wanted you. So maybe you could have used your psychology degree to counsel people in the Lord. I know plenty of Christian counselors, okay? that have psychology degrees, that went through the same path you did, okay, and they don't work in mental institutions, or they don't work in mental wards or anything like that. They sit there and people come in and they talk to them about their problems and they counsel them with the Bible. Okay? So, I think what she's doing here is basically saying there was one path. There's this one path that I thought Jesus was leading me down. And when I got to that job, it wasn't the path that I thought it was going to be. And you know what? That's okay. A lot of people have that. Okay? I've had that. I know other people have had that. Okay? They don't lose their faith because they got to their first job and went, "Oh my God, this isn't the job Jesus wanted for me. Ah!" No. They reevaluate their faith. They pray to the Lord. They ask, "Is this really what you want for me?" And then they go from there. It sounds to me like she wanted this job. And she thought that this job was going to be the job for her that Jesus was giving to her. And then when she got there, it sounds like the Holy Spirit was kind of knocking on her door and going, "This isn't where I wanted you." It sounds like he was trying to open other doors. But she was so determined to go down this path, he was like, "Okay, go down there." Because sometimes that's what God does. He lets us walk a certain path so that we run into a closed door and then we go, "Wait a minute, that door didn't open." And the Lord's like, "You're right." Did you think about praying about it? Did you go home that night and pray to God and say, "God, why did you make me feel that way? Why did I feel that way on my first day? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing with my life?" Maybe you would have gotten an answer. But did that thought ever cross your mind? Or were you so far outside of your faith at that point that you were just kind of walking along with an image of Jesus in your head that wasn't real, and you were just blundering through doors that the Lord was trying to close in your path? And when he did finally get your attention, you went, "Oh, that can't be God." I mean, that is so far beyond the realm of anything I've heard from any other Christians, okay? Is like, usually when they get into, because like, my dad had a friend who, like, was told by everybody that he'd make a great pastor. Even I told him that when I first met him. I was like, "Dude, you'd be a great pastor." And he's like, "Yes, I know." It's like, "Everybody tells me that." And he goes, "But that's not the calling the Lord had for me." He goes, because I listened to everybody, because I thought that was the Lord telling me that I was supposed to go be a pastor. And he goes, "I was a pastor for like, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. And he goes, and every day of it, I was in pain on the floor, reaching out to God, saying, 'God, why did you make me do this?' When I suddenly realized that God wasn't making me do this, I did this to myself because I listened to everybody else and not God." And he goes, "The best day of my life was when I walked out as a pastor." And he goes, "I love helping people. I love preaching the word. But I can't be a senior pastor because there is so much responsibility. There is so much going on. That's not what the Lord called me to be." I said, "Yeah, makes sense. It does." And he goes, "Sometimes what we thought was a calling may not necessarily be the calling that God wants us to do. So maybe she should have prayed about it. Why did I feel that way on my first day of this job I thought you were giving me, Lord?" Maybe she would have gotten an answer. That's not the job you want. That's not the job you're supposed to be doing. It's not the job I wanted for you. Because maybe she was listening to other people and not to God. That happens sometimes. We think it's God. We think it's God speaking to us. But sometimes it's not. We have to stop and pray. That's why Paul said, pray without ceasing. Okay? Because that prayer is a conversation with God. And if you're not praying to God, okay? I mean, like, why do you think I'm doing this? You think I'm doing this because I'm trying to get some atheist over here to like me, or I'm trying to get her to change her mind? No. I'm doing this because he called me to do it. That's the only reason I'm doing it. I probably never would have done this. Okay? Because for me, I was doing movies, and I was doing some Let's Play videos. And I started getting into it with atheists online, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all these atheist videos started popping up in my feed. And I kept getting the sense that I needed to start answering against these things. And then one day, as I was reading through the Bible, as I was doing some things, I came across Matthew 10, 32 and 33. And I went, I get it now, Lord. You do want me to do this. But you have to pray about it. And you have to let the Holy Spirit guide you. If you're not doing that, you're not living the Christian life. You're not following Christ. Because that's literally what the Bible tells us to do. So if you're not doing that, then I'm sorry to say, you're not being a Christ follower. The Jesus that you built up in your mind is not the Jesus of the Bible. So you need to re-examine your faith sometimes. And when I say re-examine, I don't mean deconstruct like this. I mean sit down and pray to God and find out, God, what is it that you want from me? Where do you want me? What do you want me to do? And go from there. If you're not doing that, you're not doing it right.
Like, no. I ended up quitting after that first day because I knew it just was not for me.
I've quit jobs after the first day. I've quit jobs after the first week. I've been fired after 1 week of a job. I've been fired after 2 years of a job. I've been fired after 3 years of a job. I've had lots of jobs in my life. Quitting your job once doesn't make you a person. It makes you human. Hello? Everyone has quit their job at some point, or been fired or terminated from a job for various reasons. Okay? Just because you thought that this was the job that the Lord had for you and you quit it after 1 day doesn't mean that that's the job that God had for you, and because you quit it, oh my God, I have to quit my faith because I had this job and it wasn't for me. Did you ever think to ask the Lord why? Huh? Come on now, be honest with yourself there, Sarah.
At all. And that might not seem like a big deal. Like, okay, you had your first job didn't work out. But for me, it just did not fit in with my understanding of God and how he worked. Like, I had prayed so much over this job. There was a point where I thought I wasn't going to get it. And I did. I still did. And I really attributed that to Jesus.
Are you sure? Are you sure? I mean, you say you were praying over the job, and at one point you almost didn't get it. Maybe that was the Lord trying to close that door for you. Did you fight to go get the job? Because if you did, if you like called them up and said, "Hey, I'm really interested. I'm really this. I'm really that. Blah blah blah." Maybe the Lord was trying to close that door, and maybe you forced that door open. Did you ever think of that? Sometimes we start down a path, and if we don't stop, we continue down that path no matter what. We just go. And if you're not paying attention, then what ends up happening is that the Lord sometimes puts roadblocks in our way to try to stop us from going down that path. And sometimes we ignore the roadblocks, even though it trips us up. The important thing is, after you went to the job, did you think to ask the Lord? If you didn't, you're not following God. Because again, you're building up this image of what you think Jesus is in your mind. And she was building up this image, and then she was like walking along with this image and thinking, this is great, this is wonderful, this is where I want to be. And when God actually tapped her on the shoulder and was like, that's not me, because this isn't the job I wanted for you, she threw it all away. Why? Again, did she ever think to ask? I don't hear that. I don't hear I didn't spend time in prayer and meditation and reading the Word to try to figure out if this job was what I was supposed to have or not. I just heard this, oh, well, I was going down this one road and I was going here and I thought this was the job Jesus had for me and I quit after one day. Yeah, and? I worked at an Orange Julius for one day. Okay? And I basically at the end of the day I said, because the person asked me, they were like, oh, do you want to continue? I'm like, no. And I walked out. Okay? I mean, I was not, that was definitely not where I was supposed to be. Okay? Even though the hiring process went super smooth. Okay? And they said, be here on this day at this time and, you'll get right in, you'll come right in, you'll walk in this door and you'll come in the back and you'll drop off your stuff, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, walked in there, walked up, started doing stuff. Yeah. Totally not the right job for me. Okay. And I walked out. In fact, almost every single food service job I've ever had in my life was absolute crap. Something went horribly wrong there. I had bad bosses. I had horrible experiences. I mean, I can deal with bad customers. You gotta have bad customers in any job you're in if you're doing sales at any time. Okay, anytime somebody feels jaded, they're gonna let you know. I'm just talking about the actual experience of bad coworkers, bad bosses, bad experiences. That kind of stuff. It was all. Every food service job I've ever worked was crap. Okay? So you had one job that you thought God wanted you to have. And when you got there, it turns out you weren't supposed to be there. Again, ask God, was this the job I was supposed to have? That's what you should have been asking yourself. You should have been on your knees that night. Lord, why did I quit this job? Thought this was the job you wanted for me. What do you want me to do with my life then? I have this degree. What do you want me to do with it? I'm pretty sure he probably would have given you some answers. But instead, you decided to what? Throw it all away? For what? Atheism? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Sheesh.
Working in the circumstances to make it possible for me to get this job. So that really kind of started forming cracks in my theology and cracks in wondering maybe I've got something wrong here about God and about how he works. Stage 4 was my dating relationship.
Okay. Before we jump into the dating relationship thing, I just want to end on this one last thing. You'll notice that there, she said, I quit this job, and that's when the cracks started to form in my faith. I've had cracks in my faith before, too. It's okay to have cracks in your faith. Happens all the time, okay? It just means that you're human. It just means that you're questioning, why is this happening to me? Why am I losing my job? Why is this going on? Why is that going on? But if you're not turning to God, and you're not praying to God and saying, God, why is this way? And you're not getting any answers, maybe you need to re-examine your relationship with God. Not re-examine what Christian faith is all about. Because it sounds to me like she had built up this image of what God was in her head. And when things started going wrong in life, instead of like using that time to come back to God, okay? Like, she's pushing God away from her, which is the wrong thing to do, okay?
Unraveling. If you're interested in hearing more about this relationship in particular, I'll have links below where you can check out some of my blog posts about it, or I'll include a link at the top of this video where you can check out other videos that I've made about this relationship. This relationship, I had met this guy in college my sophomore year, and we dated for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. So I had graduated college. He lived out of state. We hardly ever got to see each other. I was really going through a sort of situational depression, not just because of the relationship, for other things too, but the relationship was a huge contributor to the state of my mental health. And so eventually I felt like I was forced to pick between God's plan for my life, God's pick for me, God's pick of spouse for me, or my mental health.
How do you know that was God's pick for you? Oh, I'm sorry, did you not expect that question? How do you know that was God's pick for you? There's 7 to 8 billion people in the world. 3.5 to 4 billion of them are men. And you're saying that was the only person that you could have ever had a relationship or a marriage relationship with? This is the one thing I think that Christians get the most messed up on, is this notion of, that was supposed to be the spouse. Yeah, I thought so too. In fact, I've had 3 serious girlfriends. Okay? 3 serious relationships in my life. I'm working on number 4. But the first relationship was in college. Okay? She was a agnostic, kind of semi-Christian. But she had been in a relationship with a non-Christian, so it kind of pulled her way away from the faith. I witnessed to her one night, and then, like, within about 6 months, she cheated on me. And, yeah, that felt pretty shitty. My second relationship was when I lived in another town after I graduated from technical college. I'd gotten with this gal, here again, not a Christian, but she believed in some form of higher power. She believed in God, per se, but it wasn't Christianity, okay? It was just a form of spiritualism, almost like a universalist Unitarian kind of thing. But we dated. We had sex, which was bad. It was good at the time, but it was very, very bad afterwards, because it's true when they say you should not be having sex in a relationship before marriage, because, yeah, it just complicates things so much. And, like, yeah, it was not a good relationship. And the last relationship was my ex-wife. And I thought that she was the one. I thought that she was going to be the one forever. And it turns out she was emotionally manipulative. She, tried to think that every time something was wrong, it was always my fault, or it was somebody else's fault, or that I needed to change, that she didn't need to change. And there was a lot of pushing and pulling going on emotionally in that relationship. So if she was going through hard times, and almost every time I've ever had one of these relationships, it's made me reevaluate my relationship with God. Because generally speaking, when that kind of stuff goes on, I get pulled away from God. Okay? And I have to turn back to Him. Okay? I've been divorced 3 years now, 3.5 years. And I'm like, I'll be the first one to tell you, okay? Just because you thought that one guy was supposed to be the spouse for you, if you two are truly Christian, and you tell him, look, I'm having some serious issues in my life, and I need help going through them, that person will either A, back off, or B, stick by you through thick and through thin, which is what they're supposed to do, okay? And when I say back off, I mean they're going to back off to the point where they're still going to be present, but they're not going to try to push you into something, okay? They're going to try to be encouraging, they're going to try to be there for you, but they're not going to, like, push themselves on you or smother you like a blanket, okay? And that is something that in my last relationship, my ex-wife didn't do, okay? I told her I had things that I needed to work on in my life, and she took that as he doesn't want kids, he doesn't want a family, he doesn't want any of this stuff, and she used that as ammunition against me. Every time we fought, she was like, you said you didn't want a family. I said, no, I said I didn't want a family right that minute. Because I needed to work on things in my life, okay? There were things about myself that I didn't feel comfortable bringing a child into that situation, okay? Because I know firsthand what it's like to bring a child into a situation that is not healthy, okay? I have personal issues in my life from my childhood to my teen years, okay, that are not healthy. And I knew that. And I didn't want to bring a child into that. Okay? So, to Sarah and to anyone out there watching, if you're sitting there going, I don't know if this is supposed to be the guy that God wants for me, or if this is the spouse that God wants for me, talk to God and tell that person what's going on in your life. And if that person truly loves you, truly, truly loves you, and you tell them, I need some time, they're going to back off. And they're going to wait for you to approach them after you've had a problem. Okay? Because when I started dating again, after I had gotten out of my divorce, I met a gal, okay? And we kind of got into a situation where we were talking about marriage, we were talking about things, and then she came to visit me, and she said, you have a similar personality to a friend of mine. And I feel that if we go down this road, the road that we're still on, that we're going to get into a situation where we're going to have a major fight, words are going to be exchanged, and then we're going to lose. And we're gonna butt heads, we're going to say things that we regret, and we're not going to be friends anymore. And she said, I'd rather be your friend than be your spouse. I said, if that's the way you feel. And she goes, look, maybe down the road, a ways, maybe we can try to make it work. And you know what? She never returned my text. She never returned anything from me. And that's okay. Because I think I finally found someone that understands me, that truly understands me, and truly respects me, and truly cares for me, that she wants the best for me. Okay? But I've had to go through a lot of growing on my own. I've had to go through a lot of growing with God to get to that point. Because you're not going to find the first... Not everyone is going to have their spouse waltz into their life and be like, "Hey, honey, I'm home," on the first person you meet. Or the first person you date. Does it happen? Yeah. But it's rare. I mean, it happened to my brother. It didn't happen to me. It never happened for many of my friends. I know many of my friends who, one friend has had 3 wives. Okay? Most of my friends have been single their whole lives. One friend is my age, and he's never been married. Granted, I haven't talked to him since 2020 because we kind of fell out of contact during the pandemic and during other things, and I just haven't given him a call. But, okay, and even he had issues with the first person that he thought was going to be the one that he was supposed to marry. But that didn't take him out of his faith. If anything, it grew him closer to God. Because he came to me and he sat down with me and he was like, "What am I doing wrong?" And I said, "You're not doing anything wrong. It's her." So, to sit there and think that because you chose mental health over a boy that you thought God was putting in your path to be your spouse, one is immature. Okay? It's mature that you chose your mental health over a guy, but it's immature to think that you know better than God. Okay? 2, it's also incredibly arrogant to think that, oh, this was the only person that God was ever going to bring into my life. Or 3, to even ask the guy if he would stick by you while you were working through this stuff. Or that maybe he could back off for a little while, okay, while you worked through your depression phase so that you could get to a better spot so that you and he could have gotten married at some point. Did you ever think of that? This is the biggest problem I see with people today, is they expect this sort of TV dinner fix. You throw it in the microwave, you push a couple of buttons, and beep! That's not how God works. I'm sorry that you didn't learn that before y'all went out and threw it all away. Notice who I'm pointing to. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of this series so far. And, got about 13 minutes left of this video. So, we're going to get into it in the next one. And, we'll continue on this point of breakups and relationships. Okay? Because relationships are hard. They take work. Okay? And yeah, sometimes you might have to prioritize yourself over a person. But if they truly care about you, they will wait for you while you work through issues. Okay? But we'll get into that on the next one. And as we say, we will see you on the next one.